You cannot reject an idea just because it's different from yours, and you're starting to explode. And after I managed to learn Jung during my psychology teaching, and I was like realizing and connecting that Jung actually put the West and the East together in his philosophy. So you can find the Taoism also and the Western Catholics idea mixing and finding the common root in between. And for me, that was a mind blow. And after that, I was just concentrating on him because I realized that he is the basic who will lead it forward. Yeah, and most of the time, if you think about the depressive people or the depression as an illness, it's come from the position that the feeling overtakes the person. You wake up with a feeling that your life is not worthy, and you just don't want to go to the street because everybody hate you and everybody has a bad view about you, and it's creating itself, and it's starting to override your actions. So you're not going out of the house, because if you're going out of the house, maybe you will get another attack and whatever is going on. And it's actually creating itself because these energies are connecting with the others, and now we are speaking about that kind of same vibration level what is attached to it. So in that case, your emotion is going forward and dictating your action. And what you're saying is a very good idea, because if you go with the thinking and you overthink the emotions, and you said that yes, I have this bad feeling, but I can change it with my thinking, because I believe I don't need to be in the bad state. I can change it because I can have a good day. I can go out and I have a wonderful day. And because it depends on me, it depends how I think and how I create my life. I wanted to tell you what you say, and I loved it really much. Remember who you are. And it's the one when you connect with your dreams and the archetypes, and you're going out to see the world, and after you realize that, oh my God, it's not just my phone, but there are trees over there, and there are birds flying and singing, and the water flow next to me, and all of a sudden you sit down and get barefoot and starting to connect the real roots, and you somehow starting to feel that there is something unlogical but real things connect to you when you're going to the nature. And this is that kind of very, very deep connection what cannot be override by just mind. And that's what the problem in today's world, and where how I see the danger, that they wanted to cut off from that kind of source. Because actually what I truly am is the I am behind the whole thing. What is the connection to the source? And this is what you actually saying, and what you bring up, the free will. And it's such another interesting question, because Spinoza, for example, said that free will is an illusion. Because if you think about the universal mind, everything what you do is interacted by the universal mind. So whatever you think, whatever you act, however you act, is exactly the way how you should do it. So the more closer you are to the source, actually the more you do according to the source, and the more freedom you have. What is a totally contradiction and totally absurd things. But the more you have closeness to the source, you have the more freedom, but on the same time you're exactly doing what the source make you to do.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to Common Underground podcast. I'm your host, Jasper Rodenhuis, and today I'm joined with Szilvia, as well as my co-host, Cheer. And Szilvia is a person that I met with philosopher circles. Some of you probably seen the one that I did about the holographic universe. It was with the same audience, and we had some brief interactions, but really powerful ones. So everyone's still very curious, because of my own interest in Jungian psychology as well, and interest in art. So would love to learn a little bit more about your take and about your life. And was reading on your website, you did quite incredible stuff. You went to the Middle East to partake in the human rights movement, to help out with standing out for women's freedom there. You also went to Hawaii to be initiated there, to be initiated by the Mayan culture. let me see, there's so much to mention there. You went to the Middle East, like I said, Africa, India. You are a therapist, a psychologist, a social activist, and
And a
also
lawyer.
an artist and a lawyer. So that's a lot. How did you come into be interacted with the philosophy circle? First of all, I'm interested to know that.
Oh, I was invited by the guy called Naser, a wonderful man, and he asked me because I was in another group and we met in this group, and he asked me out to join to his circle. And but philosophy was always my main point. You know, when you come from a background what is like a strict religious rules. I'm originally Hungarian, by the way, and a Christian background, when you was told that, or you were told that you are a woman and your major job is to get the big hips because it's carrying lots of child and able to carry child and do a kitchen stuff. And after you grow up and it's like it's just not enough. And after I went to the Middle East and faced with a totally different reality at a totally different religion background, and we had that kind of viewpoint in Hungary that Christian and Hungarian is the only right one, and it's really difficult to face and question your own values and belief system when you are faced with a totally different one. So it took years for me to understand that just because somebody believes in a different ideology, they are not your enemy. They have their own truth. And it was years to understand that it's not the religion, the idea, the basic idea of the religion is good. The problem is how people circling around the titles and starting to corrupt the ideas. And every single religion has good and bad side. And that's how we come to philosophy. And that was the time when I started to travel around, because my job as a cabin crew let me do that. So I went to Hawaii and went to Mexico or Mexico right after that, connecting with shamans, learn from them. And after I starting to do yoga and went to the Indian ideology, and put in these particles into your life is starting to create a whole different view of life. What is like, you cannot put it in one box. You cannot reject an idea just because it's different from yours, and you're starting to explode. And after I managed to learn Jung during my psychology teaching, and I was like realizing and connecting that Jung actually put the West and the East together in his philosophy. So you can find the Taoism also and the Western Catholics idea mixing and finding the common root in between. And for me, that was a mind blow. And after that, I was just concentrating on him, because I realized that he is the basic who will lead it forward.
Yeah, Jung is such an interesting person. And just for people that don't really know what I mean with the philosophy circle that we're partaking in, it's put up by Naser, that invited you and myself as well. And I think it's an aim to bridge a gap between the West and the East, because like in the Islamic tradition, there you have such a prejudice about us and we about them, that it's so important that we try to understand each other. And that's also the aim of this podcast. It's not necessarily trying to convince anybody of a certain ideology, but try to understand each other, like where we're coming from and how we can settle together, like on a common basis. Is this for maybe for you, Chert, is this something that how do you look up in this multiple influences on these religions? Like do you have this syncretist approach as well, where you're trying to bridge on these religions? What is your experience on it?
I just read yesterday, especially from Jung, a meme or just a picture or quote, that Jung is the one who connected the East and the West roots, and he is the one who's saying that you have to transcend the religions and the tribe ideas, that we are separate from each other. Because if you concentrate on the common ground, is a little bit the same as And other story, I connect the drawing. When I draw, we always concentrate the in-between. It's not concentrating one side of the story, but in between. They said if you want a good relationship, you're not concentrating on you or the other person, you concentrate on the relationship in between. And that's what Michelangelo said as well, to concentrate on the in-between, concentrate on the empty space between the two things. So I believe that's what we have to find out, the connections. We're not concentrating on certain religious point, we concentrate on the connections between them.
Yeah, definitely.
In your travels, Szilvia, you've gone to many different places, and you've had the opportunity to talk with people from different cultures, even ask them deep questions, I'm sure. There is large differences in cultural approaches to, say, spiritualism or religion, or even just attitudes towards life. And it's easy to point out the differences, but in your experience, have you come across a common theme, or perhaps like something that unifies all the different people that you've spoken to, that they all share in common?
Just give an example. When I was in Japan, and they have this kind of different idea about cleanliness and everything. You know, they bowing in front of the train, and there has this kind of tradition to taking care of each other in such a deep way that they don't even let the seat back going backwards, not to hurt the behind person. And it's so rare to see in our cultures, because we concentrating much more the individualism and much more egoist. And when I'm going deeper in the Japanese culture, and I find the ancient samurai culture, and you know, the Bushido code and these kind of stuff, the Bushido code as a basic matter what's based on integrity and honesty and all of the basic principles, and these are the ones what connect. And if you speak with someone and go deeper and deeper and find these roots, they have Bushido code. And after you go to another country or another religion, and you find the same basic ancient codes, what is there. And it's even in Amsterdam or Dutchland, or even in Hungary, there has the basic codes, and we have to go back to these one. It's called also a perennial philosophy, that everything is based on the same common roots, and I believe this is the one we are searching for. And when I'm speaking with people, that's what you actually figuring out when you go deeper, if they let you go deeper.
And if they are also able to speak with integrity and honesty.
Yeah, and the problem is always the wall. You know, you come from a different culture and you go there and, hi, I am this and this, and I am Szilvia, and please let me share everything with me. And they were like, oh, wait a bit, who are you again? And it takes time to get close to someone, to have a deep conversation, to see how they opening up for you. Because I think the basic root is that you open up and you wait for the others. But sometimes the other is like, yeah, you know what, that's too much for me. Thank you so much. I just don't want to go that deep, because my distance requirements is much more bigger than yours. And I have to understand that, because that's their borders, and I have to respect other borders as well. So there was a couple of issues when, because of the cultural differences, they don't let me go closer, because that's their distance.
Yes. It's a matter of preservation, perhaps, as well, and conservation of these principles, keeping them in their place, and also not removing them from their context, because they might lose meaning. Is that something that you would view it that way?
Yeah, maybe they are a little bit afraid of merging with the others as well, to keep it a secret, or that kind of protection. But also sometimes it's just much more the personality and the cultural background, that they just don't let you in so fast, and I didn't have more time to stay with them, to learn then respect, you know, or get their respect. So relationships in every single meaning takes time and effort. So this is something I learned, that earning trust is it takes time. And after when you go through that bridge, this is the time when you go into details. And this is what is really focused on philosophy as well, that you see a big picture, for example, behind me, and first you just see the picture and recognize what it is. And when you're focusing more and more and more, you see the little bit details in it. And the more you focus, the more little details is opening up for you. And this is like life as well. When you come to the world, you have definitely me, have the big mouth and the big ego that, oh no, that will be easy, I will go fine. And after you facing with different difficulties, and you're facing some kind of struggle, and after you have to stop yourself, you have to rethink, you have to review the picture, and you understand more and more the little details. And when you're starting to connect the little dots, a total different pictures opening up, different colors, different reality, a different perspective, and you're starting to see the same big pictures in a totally different version, in deeper. And I think this is one of the aim of life, on my understanding, as purpose of life, to experience the deepness of life.
Isn't that also in like the Jungian psychology terms, the individuation process? It's like this integration where you put all the puzzle pieces together. Is that similar?
Yeah, and also if we speak about Jungian, the collective conscious, what is according to Jung, is the basic common root for every single person. And this is what I said in another interview, that even if you are dreaming as in your country with your culture or background, and there is a person who is dreaming in China on a totally different background, the basic manifestation of the dream, the basic rules of the dream is totally the same. And this is the common root what we have, what we heritate. And they said that ancient history is going through in your brain, because the memory is somehow heritating to people, to lifetimes. And you can, and this is the big question, because I was always wondered about it, if you are able to reconnect and channel back to big thinkers, to somehow reconnect their idea and reawaken it in this land. For example, Plato or Aristotle or somebody, to connect back and somehow unconsciously manage to get out from that kind of, if there is this collective conscious, can we use that for channeling in, to channel down some great information? And I don't know, nobody knows the answer, but at least we can try, because if there is a collective conscious, there has to be a great amount of knowledge over there, untapped, what we can get.
I completely agree. I think that ideas are immortal, and they seem to find a way to exist outside of the human brain as well, because inventions will come up all across the world from individuals that seem to have the same idea. And so perhaps that points to the fact that ideas live separate from us as well, and live and come back. Yeah, these ideas of Aristotle and Plato, of course, form the foundation of a lot of the kind of frameworks we use to view the world today. And it would be interesting, because the world, of course, has changed a lot since ancient Greek war times. And so to view the modern world through those frames, it creates a very interesting picture. Perhaps it's fair to say that it's somewhat distorted, but we can learn from that as well, whilst we try to create a framework for today's world, so that we can find the truth of what we are living.
And I think like, speaking of frameworks, like with Descartes, this is a guy that influenced a huge amount of our modern thought, our modern thinking, where we split mind and matter. So with Jungian, it's very different. It's like he presents his philosophy, his psychology, as being purely psychological. But what is your take on as being something metaphysical? That it's something that is actually, these are mechanisms that not merely just speak at our individual level, but there's also some universality to what he is saying. How do you see that?
It's a very good question, and I'm really happy that you pointed out, because Descartes was one of the major who bring up this whole rationalization idea, thinking about how you define yourself and how you find yourself in the universe, and he was concentrating on that kind of thinking, that the thinking and the mind is everything, and there was a lots of concept on that time. Even Newton based on this Descartes concept. And Newton started to put the mind in a ruling position to override the whole planet and starting to override everything around. The only problem I see in Descartes' ideas, that he started to connect that overriding process to put the mind in an unquestionable position. And if something is unquestionable, that means that something is not accepted, because nothing is completely 100% true. Everything is, if we are thinking about the dualism, everything is black or white. So it cannot be, something cannot be questioned. And later, if you know Kybelion, the Kybelion starting sentence is all is mind. And I was starting to wonder, is that really all is mind, or maybe my concept is not good, or something is wrong with it? Because I don't think that if we're thinking about the mind and body concept, mind is everything and the body disappeared, because body is overruled by the mind and the body becomes servant. And I believe the two have to be somehow balanced. And that came Jung, because Jungian philosophy started to concentrate on the unconscious, and the unconscious is basically the driving force of the body. So Jung idea went towards for that ideology that the body has own goddess, or that kind of own driving forces. So not everything the mind, there is something on the other side as well, what is interacting with the mind. And if you go about the Taoism or the Eastern sign of the thinking, it's called the samadhi. And according to the samadhi ideology, the real meaning of life starting when you go beyond the mind. So when you just thinking, it's you are going to investigate an automatic process, because the mind is like a muscle, is just going to think everything around and make you cuckoo after a while, because it's not stopping. It's just as a muscle, it's going forward. And the yogis or the Buddhism said that you have to go through the wall behind the thinking. And they said that Descartes made the error when he said that you cannot go towards the thinking because everything is the thinking, because he said that behind the thinking is evil. No, behind the thinking you have to go forward, that kind of dark whatever force, or we can say that the body, the dark goddess, what is that kind of facing your unconscious and accepting and surrounding or surrender that kind of unconscious things you cannot accept with your mind, because it's out of the range of the mind. And this is when you became the observer instead of the thinker. So observing your thinking is one way behind, and you're starting to observe. And this observer thinking is, or the observer is without thinking. It's not thinking, it's just observe all of the thoughts. And in that case, you become that kind of neuro, how can I say, totally no part taken, somebody who can pick the thinking, but you are not part of it. And this is when you leave the thinking part and you just observe. And this is that kind of samadhi state when you just go with the flow and enjoy whatever happening, even if it's good, even if it's bad, even if it's a struggle, even if it's a happiness, because you know it's going in a circle. And after a while, you just leave the thinking, going on the way there. And when you want, you can pick it back and you use it on your own source, but you are the magician on the top, and you are the one who concentrating on that thinking. That's how
that there is the one thing about Descartes that you disagree with, and so what you are describing, it sounds like a clear contradiction of Descartes' expression, "I think, therefore I am," because you're basically saying, no. If you do that, then you confuse yourself with your thoughts. And you need to create a separation so that you can observe your thoughts. And so I am and I think. And the two, like you can put them together, but then you create the ego illusion perhaps, or you just strengthen the illusion of the ego.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that's so good. That's so good what you say. And you know what I'm saying, that Descartes said, I am, and I say, I am, and I am not. And this is the part that you have to put together, because I am and I am not. And Descartes got only one part of it. So he didn't accept the other part.
Well, my problem with that statement that he made is that you could also say I feel, therefore I am. You can also say I am, therefore I think, or I am, therefore I feel. Like it doesn't necessarily have to be initial that you first think and then you come into existence. So that means that our identity is based on merely just thoughts, but that's just one aspect of who we are. Like I could say I act, therefore I am, or so there's so many different layers that we in our consciousness have. So because as a philosopher we're contemplating, so yes, it seems to be logical that our thoughts is the totality of who we are. But when you go into meditation, like you said with the samadhi, like you recognize that there's these that who you are is something that is it's kind of similar to what Parmenides, like to maybe for people that know a little bit more about philosophy, but Parmenides said that the whole world was an illusion and that there's a fixed point behind this, all this changeable, that's point of stillness. That's what I think what you're speaking on with this observation, that pure observation of not this external appearances, but well, he sees it as like pure reason, like the logos itself, like you can see it with full clarity without like, okay, having to put conditions to it, like, okay, I have to think, or maybe you don't even have to observe, you have to just be. I don't know, like, what do you think on that? Or what are your feelings?
But you were saying that if I am how I feel, or I am how I think, and feeling is also on other drive, what is driven mainly from the amygdala part of the brain. Biological part is from the frontal cortex, and both of these activities in the brain is automatically stimulating. And last time in one of my meetings, I got the questions that what do you think if thinking influencing the emotions, or the emotions influencing the thinking, and how is the action coming from the thinking or the emotions? And I believe they are interact, and there are emotions which can awake thoughts what create an action, and also there are thoughts what create the feelings and going for the actions. But the basic thing is to reach that kind of state when you observe all the thinking and all the emotions on the same time. And this is what I was referring to step back and realize that even the emotions, when it's starting to take over and make you jump on the situation without thinking through your emotions, that would be also that kind that you lost that observation position behind it.
Yes, if I want to achieve a certain emotional state, say during a meditation practice or just during daily life, I would use the tools of thought to arrive at the emotion. And so if I want to experience gratitude and love, then I would use my thinking mind to imagine scenarios in which I am close to my family members, my friends. And I would visualize scenarios that would create these emotions. But then that implies that thought comes before emotion, but I can understand that it could also be viewed from the other perspective or from the other direction. Is that what you're saying here as well?
Yeah, and most of the time, if you think about the depressive people or the depression as an illness, it's come from the position that the feeling overtakes the person. You wake up with a feeling that your life is not worthy, and you just don't want to go to the street because everybody hates you and everybody has a bad view about you, and it's creating itself, and it's starting to override your actions. So you're not going out of the house, because if you're going out of the house, maybe you will get another attack, and whatever is going on. And it's actually creating itself, because these energies are connecting with the others, and now we are speaking about that kind of same vibration level what is attached to it. So in that case, your emotion is going forward and dictating your action. And what you're saying is a very good idea, because if you go with the thinking and you overthink the emotions, and you said that, yes, I have this bad feeling, but I can change it with my thinking, because I believe I don't need to be in the bad state. I can change it because I can have a good day. I can go out and I have a wonderful day. And because it depends on me, it depends how I think and how I create my life. And this is when you're taking over. And when you're saying that repetition is very important, and there is a guy, Bruce Lipton, who was saying that whatever happening in your first 7 years, it has a very, very deep impact in the rest of your life. And everything what is in this first 7 years was traumatic will have a long effect, but you can override the effect by repeating something good. More than there is a rule that if you repeat something more than 21 days, it became a new synapses building up in your brain. So as soon as you're starting to repeat a good thing, a good circle, for example, waking up in the morning and trying to put some motivational whatever memes and put it in your head that this is today's message, and you're doing 21 days next to each other, after it became a circle in your brain, a new circle, and it's starting to rewrite the whole system. And we're now speaking about epigenetics, how environment and a gene connect each other and override each other.
So consciously creating new neural pathways to stimulate new behavior that at first feels unnatural. Maybe there's a lot of resistance, but you're saying that if you stick with it, that after a certain amount of time, perhaps it'd be 21 days, but this could be different perhaps per individual, but you grow these new neural pathways so that you wake up and you don't have the resistance towards these new behaviors anymore, but they start happening automatically because they're a part of you.
Yes. Yes, and you know the good thing is that it's override the previous one, and because the previous synapse wasn't used, that's why the previous synapse is starting to get weaker, and the new is taking over, and that's how you heal yourself.
Yes, but because it's also not necessarily just merely in your brain. It's like your brain structure is also made out of cells, and these cells are distributed to your whole body. Like you have this nervous system, and our water, like water can store information, just like Macho Emoto showed with his experiment. So, but what you're saying is that people can also practice self-healing with this capability, with not merely like fixing your pathologies or neurosis, but also like if you have more severe diseases, that there's also a way that you can practice making yourself, just like the placebo effect, like healing yourself with physiological systems as well? Or is it purely something psychological, or is it something physiological, or the combination of both, like psychosomatic?
It has a special field in psychology, in neuroscience actually. It's called brain plasticity, and they figured out, there was some big names but I don't remember these ones, but the major point is that they figured out that you can create these synapses and you can override the old programs. And a very good example for that is music, especially in New York. There are a special conservatory, there is a special hospital dealing with different kind of traumas using music to heal, because music interacting both part of your brain, the left and the right hand side as well, especially if you are a musician, because in case you are a musician, you are concentrating on the notes, what is the logical side of the brain, to read the notes. You're concentrating how you use your both of the hands and synchronize both of the hands. That is also the logical part of the brain, but you also interact with the other part of the brain, the emotions and the sounds, how the sounds affect everything in your body. So music is one thing what you can use to harmonize the left and the right hand side, and how you harmonize, creating so much firework in your brain that is actually it's like a cognitive development inside your brain, and can heal dementia and everything else. And there was a story I heard, a study made with pregnant woman, that the pregnant woman was listening Beethoven and Mozart, and whoever listened Beethoven and Mozart, the music was so complicated and in the same time beautiful but complex, and the masterpiece, that the kid cognition starting to develop much more faster and much more deeper than the kids who didn't have that kind of experiment. So that's one of the examples how thoughts or intentional sources can interact with your genetics and with your life. Yeah.
Yes, I love it. Now, you mentioned a little earlier in the conversation the concept or the idea of everything is mind, and whether we agree with it or not. Since you also have quite a substantial background in psychology, I would like to ask you about DID. Like, I think that's what it's called nowadays, dissociative identity disorder, and it's an umbrella term for, say, multiple personality disorder and other mental illness. Now, I have read about how the mind can actually influence the body. Now, we know about the placebo effect and about natural healing, but I've also read that people with multiple personalities can have different physical manifestations for each of these personalities. So say one personality might need a prescription like myself, whilst the other one has perfect 10-10 vision. And someone might have a very bent back and need a cane to walk, but their other personality is very agile and is actually very very flexible. And so if that is all true, I've heard even wilder allegations of people having, say, for example, different skin, like you have like the, what do you call that, the moles, or they have different eye colors associated with these different personalities. If the physical manifestation can change to this level, would that imply then that mind is really ruling the body and that it is a manifestation of mind? How do you view that?
Or exactly the opposite, because we're speaking about schizophrenic disorders and that kind of stuff, when this kind of segment is fallen down from the person, that this kind of personalities could be as Jung stated, unhealed part of life, and so neglected, so desperately left out, that they totally became separate from the main personality, if there is a main personality even left. It's like masks, and they starting to somehow survive, but they were not healed. That is the part what is left behind in the childhood traumas and haven't been healed and repressed, and is so much repressed, and after a while this repression is turned out and create a whole person around it. So it's exactly the opposite could be than the mind, because it is the unconscious level that's kind of untouched by the mind created a life. And I think this is the basic rule against Descartes, because they are still exist and they have nothing to do with the mind and they are not thinking. So it's like so unconscious that it's really difficult to heal, because they have to face with the major trauma. And without healing the major trauma and facing with it, they cannot reconnect and integrate. And everything is based on the integration. To have a whole person, you have to integrate all the masks. I always say as a fun that I am a Libra and I have thousands of masks and thousands personality, and I am playing with all of them. But at least it's integrated. I know about it. And when I playing out with one of them or another one, that I was like, yeah, and it's me. And I love it. And I love it when I am the strong, powerful woman. And I love it when I am the child who is crying at home, and all of them is mine, and all of them is me, and I am aware of it, and this is part of me, and I love all of them. But this person who has this kind of schizophrenic disorder, it's so fragmented that they have no interaction, they have no even knowledge of each other, because the major personality, if there is a major one in the middle, rejecting them, They don't want to be aware of the illness, what happened, and separate them like they are not existing. So this rejection is so deep that the repressed part is starting to fight back and take over. And this is when Descartes said that, yeah, maybe it's not everything is mind. So have to deal with the part what is under the iceberg.
Exactly. Now,
Or under the water in the iceberg, I mean.
I am not as familiar with the work of Jung as the two of you might be, but these aspects that you describe as being possibly repressed, could these somehow be related to the theory surrounding archetypes that Jung put forward?
Yeah. It's connected to archetypes, because whatever you repress, starting to find a way to get through, and the basic way to get through is the same: to find a conscious, not conscious, find a well-known already the pathway what is already walked through. And the pathway what is already walked through is the archetype. And this is what I said, that even somebody in China, or somebody in Africa in the jungle, and somebody in Europe has the basic archetypes in their dreams. And this is this pathway. What if you have nothing else to connect with, you go back to the archetypes, and you starting to operate from there.
There's like multiple points that I want to speak on. Is that, like, first on the archetypes, there's a certain multiplicity, like just like with essences, right? So that's a bit, maybe we can go a bit into that, but I think with the arche, it's arche means like the foundation. It's a ruler. It's like the principle that came first. So all of the first philosophers, they were looking at what is this arche made of, and some said it's made of some substance like water or fire, like Heraclitus said it's fire. But I think with arche, you have to find, I forget this name, the guy said like apeiron, like it's amalgamation of, like it's an encompassing of all of the multitude that exists, and that eventually like coincides. But I don't know in Jungian terms like how did they see this, but I think it's a kind of like a critique. And also with multiple, what you said, shared with multiple personality, it's something that actually almost everyone, just like Sophie also said, like I have it, but I think everybody does, because like I think the whole process of integration and building an integrity is like aligning all of your separate identities. Because like people think, I have one identity, it's called, like with me, it's like called Jasper, or it's called whatever name you give it. But when we actually go through our life, we can say, I'm gonna quit smoking. And then the next day, the other personality that's inside of ourselves has no intent to quit smoking. So you ultimately are not quitting smoking. So there are so many personalities in us that affect us. And I think I found it very interesting about what you said, Chert, is that how even your eye colors and how our whole miniature of our body can change according to our personality. I have not experienced that in any severe extreme sense, but I think some people, like you said, in severe cases, sure, there are some. So like back to the first point about the archetypes, do you see it as something plural, like there's a multitude, or do you see the archetype as being just like one archetype fragmenting itself into different forms of archetypes, where, like, you know, for people that are less aware, like Jared with Jungian psychology, an archetype is defined in different ways, but it's something that hits a deep core or a very dramatic, a deep primordial state of inside of ourselves that we find hard to articulate, but in different cultures they have different ways to articulate about it, and so it's something common. But how do you see that, like this multiplicity?
I think you're speaking in two different dimensions of the same question, and I love how you brought it up, because on one side you connected with the four elements, and you know, the earth, water, fire, and what was the fourth one? Whatever. And all these four elements is the basic, and everything is based on that four. And yeah, if you think about Jung or think about alchemy either, all of the 4 elements has the different symbols, and how the 4 elements interact with each other, and it's among them arrive the 5th one, the ether, and how this 5 starting to circling and starting to interact with each other. That's how life was created in the first place. And that's why everything is based on this, even the different kind of personalities, the water personalities and the fire personalities, it's connected to even the different kind of symbols, the signs, which sign, if you believe in signs, or like Gemini and whatever, and this is one basis of it. And the archetypes, what Jung will also connect it to, is that kind of figures, what is that this kind of personalities connect to, like the Weiss men figures. And this is going towards the tarot. If you see the tarot card, the 21 basic arcana is connected to the archetypes, the basic archetypes, different life situation, different deepness of the personality. And these are, one single card is so deep meaning and connecting to one single archetypical thoughts, that if you go deeper, you starting to feel like, oh my God, it's just too complex to understand. And there is one level when you reach that, okay, this is my level right now, and I just can't take anymore. Because, for example, I started to read the book of thought nowadays, and it's going to details and details, but you have the level of capacity in your brain as well that, oh my God, okay, now I'm losing it. Because there are certain levels, and that's what I said in the beginning, that you're starting to watch a picture and you go into details, and more aspect is coming through your eyes and starting to understand it. But it's like a source of uncapable to an unfinished source, or how can I say that, more you go deeper into it, it's the more opening up in front of you, and you just watching there. And yeah, I thought there is 3 archetypes or 4 archetypes, and that's it. And after you figure out that that's the 4 archetypes, and every 4 archetypes there are 16 archetypes behind it, and every 16 archetypes there are thousands behind it. So after a while you are like, you know what, I just go step by step a little bit, and one details, because I just don't want to make my brain totally sneeze out or something like this.
All of this research ends up in infinity at some point. And so yes, even like theorizing about different dimensions, people say there's 7 dimensions, but each dimension has 7 subdimensions, and those have, so yes, it's finding your level that you can understand these things at, but of course there's always levels beyond it. And I love how you describe that, because I often, whilst I'm doing research, it'll be like hitting a wall and being like, what is being said here right now? And of course, that's why it helps to also be open-minded to an academic lifestyle, where we actually do serious research, and we understand that there's a lot of wisdom to be found outside of ourselves as well, by listening to others. And then, of course, later on realizing that all of that information is also stored inside already, and you're basically, by exposing yourself to it, are awakening yourself to it. I think that the archetypes have always kind of stood out to me. When I first learned about them, I thought, oh, wait a second, don't we just have the tarot? But so that's interesting why that you also brought that up. I've always seen a connection there, and I'm interested to hear that you're seeing the connection as well between the tarot and the archetypes. Do you feel like Jung looked at these pre-existing sources, or do we know where his theory surrounding archetypes stems from?
Yeah, he was. If this is the question, he was working with the tarot as well, and he has a special 1-hour lecture about the tarot, how he identified different kind of source and everything. His tarot is based on an ancient Egyptian secret knowledge, and it's so ancient and so full of figures and symbols, and this is when we go back to the basic meaning of symbols, and because symbols is connected to your unconscious, and that's why one single figure can show you much more than a written word, or if you read an article or something, because symbols connected to your unconscious. So yes, it's absolutely, he had full studies about tarot.
That's very good to know, and that makes sense, because it allows me to marry those two concepts together. We tend to take scientific ideas and separate them from spiritual ideas and cosmic ancient knowledge. And so when we find out that
all of them connected
from our past, yes, they got these ideas from also studying these spiritual concepts, then I think we can feel much better about doing our research in this direction. Sometimes, and this is my personal experience, it feels like escapism when we learn about these things, because it is very attractive to learn more. But while we're learning, it's also easy to forget to live. And so to implement this knowledge in life, it's really important, especially, I guess, for people like us that are also quite young still and are really in the middle of life. And we have a lot of responsibilities, people are expecting things from us, and we also expecting things from ourselves. To then know that we always have this rectangle in our pocket, and we can literally access information all the time. It's like the fountain. It's an addictive fountain that we just don't want to leave. We want to keep drinking from it. But then how do we bring that information into the world? I think Jung did an amazing job by explaining it in a way that was digestible for more people, because I know that there's just a big stigma against the tarot, against spiritual ideas. And so we need to find a way to package these ideas in a way that the 21st century man and woman can embrace them as well. And so how do you feel like, because Jung is also from decades ago already, how do you feel like we can take his knowledge and his information and kind of also present it in a time frame for today? Do you feel like there are certain things about Jungian philosophy, and I guess this could be a question for both of you, that kind of need to be addressed or changed for the modern world?
Oh, absolutely. And especially if you see that I was silenced again and then taken off from Facebook for days because I'm not allowed to speak anymore. And I see that we are going, unfortunately, 21st centuries, that the science, actually the meaning of science is questioning everything and debate. And that's what we are speaking about, it to open up for different perspective. And how I see 21st century and what we is going around in the world is, don't dare to question. If you have a different idea, you will be shut down because you're not supposed to speak about it. And it's really difficult to see, especially now Facebook came with this new algorithm of meta, I don't know, simple meta. And they think about to take over what exactly Descartes said, only the mind exists, and we will use your mind as well, and we will influence your mind. So that's what I'm saying, that they cut off that part of the other part. You were showing the phone, and everything is coming from the phone, but I wanted to tell you what you say, and I loved it really much. Remember who you are. And it's the one when you connect with your dreams and the archetypes, and you're going out to see the world, and after you realize that, oh my God, it's not just my phone, but there are trees over there, and there are birds flying and singing, and the water flow next to me, and all of a sudden you sit down and get barefoot and starting to connect the real roots, and you somehow starting to feel that there is something unlogical but real things connect to you when you're going to the nature. And this is that kind of very, very deep connection what cannot be override by just mind. And that's what the problem in today's world, and where how I see the danger, that they wanted to cut off from that kind of source. And you cannot hug each other, you cannot get close to each other, you cannot go to the nature, you cannot get connected to the sun. It's all against this. They actually wanted to cut down the source, what is the other side. So they want Descartes, living in Descartes' mind, everything is mind. and they wanted to take out the body completely and smashed away everything that is connected to the other part. And the body in that sense is Mother Nature, and Mother Nature has an own goddess, an own knowledge, and if you cut that down, you became a mechanical driven, manipulated items, and actually a tools in someone else's hand. And this is why I really appreciate this kind of opportunity to have conversations, see the different side of the story, and connect with people, because that's what we have to bring forward. That please debate, question everything, because that's how we build up the future generation. We remember the past and connect it back, integrate it, and question everything.
Yeah, but what you said earlier about like everything is mind with about Descartes. I think you mean thinking mind, right? Because if you, like we said before with the hermetics, like all is mind. There's perhaps it would be helpful to make a bit of a distinction between the thinking mind and like the mind like the universal mind. I wanted to respond to what you said, Chert, as well. Like earlier on, you mentioned being a bit of more of an academic and doing research. So I was sparked by that because I'm reading right now a book of by Rumi, and there's one poem that speaks on this. So I would like to read that out. There are two intellects. One is acquired from teachers and books, from repetition and science, granting a sense of superiority. Yet the effort to sustain it becomes a great burden. It ends up as the water supply coming from outside. A house stops once the source has dried up. The other intellect is God's gift, with a fountainhead in the heart of spirit, the water of knowledge bubbling from within. Can never become stagnant or old. Seek that fountain within yourself. So that I think, like, because I'm reading this from a book, so it's a strange paradox. Like he's pointing me towards a fountain that is in myself, but I'm getting it from a source that he's written down. So it's such a strange paradox that, like, I went into discussions with friends often, and they said like, oh, why should I do research when it's all inside of myself? But I always say, like, it's not necessarily what I always say, but I said then to them, research is not necessarily about the content itself, but it's more about how you react to it. Like, and sometimes when somebody says something, you get angry, you get maybe confused, you get loved by it, or there's so many things that come up when I'm watching a documentary or we're reading a book that's like, okay, this is how I connect in my context. And if I come back to it later on, then I read something out of the source completely different. So it's very much depending on the stage that we're in. So yeah,
the result of that paradox, if I may address this, of course, that has to do with how you identify your true self. And so, do you stop at your skin, your true self? Does it live inside of your body? Because if you have an inside, that means you also have an outside. And so, as a part of your outside, Rumi exists as a part of you. And so, I feel like when Rumi is writing these poems, he is speaking to himself, experiencing life through all of these future personalities that walk the earth. And so, to marry that concept or to dissolve the paradox, you have to then kind of entertain the idea that we are all one, and that Rumi is speaking to himself, and that you are. So this then becomes very quickly very expansive, and this is where you feel like, oh my goodness, like I think I've lost it. I can't really wrap my head around this idea. But maybe you're not supposed to. Maybe you're supposed to leave your head and kind of experience yourself as everything that's also happening outside of your body.
It's like
And
dropping the self, the whole concept of the self. You just have to drop it and go with the flow. And when you realize that everything is connected, and it's very good example when you're reading a book that everything is inside you. And I love it because it's really this kind of in and out in the same time. And that's how quantum physics comes into the picture. If you think about it, that the observer changing the observation just by observing it. So you see something, and as you starting to see it, that thing is starting to behave differently because you see it. And that's how it's everything is interconnected with each other, and that's how life, it's so mysterious. And this is when you just drop your logic and say what someone very important science said, that in the beginning of the scientific studies, everything is logic. And after you going towards the limit, you realize that, oh my God, I believe in God. So it's like, that's how is the procedures going. When you have to, one stage, you have to realize that logic is not all. And on that, totally agree with Jasper that, yeah, we maybe have to make a distinction between mind as the logic and the universal mind. And this is what I am still incapable to understand, but I'm trying to get this, because somehow I have to put somewhere the unconscious and the whole idea what is cutting nowadays off from our reality.
Well, often when we use the word mind, we refer to our private mind. So like what I experience, my past experiences, all the knowledge that I accumulated, my own personality, that's what I refer to, like I have a mental perception of. But with a universal mind, there's not really a barrier existing, like, you know, even with telepathy, there's almost no distinction to make. Like I have sometimes these I'm pondering on this philosophically speaking, but sometimes when I think, it's merely like I'm asking myself, am I the originator of these thoughts, or am I getting somebody else their thoughts, and I'm just merely believing that they're actually my thoughts, but they're somebody else, the projection. So it's very it's a very much a skill to distinguish, like, what is the origin of our thoughts. Because like if you can distinguish, like what he's saying with the God's intellect, or my own intellect, or my own consciousness, and in the universal consciousness, you know, that's what the logos is about. It's like finding this universal universal reason. But like the thing is, like, we can find a universal answer, but then we go through our life and we actually need context to exist. So that universal answer, knowing that universal mind, that's constantly saying something different according to our experiences. So it's something that, you know, even if we narrow it down in this conversation, like it's going to be like you said, like a mysterious thing. Because like we can find you know, we can say, okay, we found God right now, but how is he going to interplay in the coming moments that we're interacting with our family, and with like what Jared earlier said, with all the responsibilities that we all have. And that's, I think, is very much the interesting part. Instead of like finding just, yeah, this is how it is, I finally found it, and we can settle down, we can have a party, and we can celebrate. But how do we integrate this actually into life itself? I think that's the real challenge, right?
I think it's funny what you're saying, because it's not like I find God and now he will interact with my life. God was always there. It's just you who after a while realize that, oh my God, he's everywhere. So this is your perception what makes the change. And if you think about it, I just got this idea, and it's always stuck my mind and couldn't manage to get around it. Creating of the world, according to the Bible and according to other sources, comes from the darkness. That darkness was all around, and after it was separated, and the darkness and the light was separated, and after God said that there will be the reason, and as he said, the reason arrived, and the reason starting to create it, everything around. But it doesn't mean that before the reason exists, there was nothing. It was the darkness. So it's like the concept is what was before and where is it started, or is it started at all? Because it seems like it's never started, it just be. it's no start and no ending. But it's like have to be a reason to create something. And I think this is the major point, that if you are created on gut face or gut shape, your task is creation, to create. And to create, you have to have the reason. You have to have the logical mind. You have to have the logic to put things together to create something new. But if you don't have the logical mind, you still exist. You are the dark. And in that case, it's the dark is not negative. The dark is the opportunity. Dark is everything what hasn't bring to the light yet. So everything. Dark is the biggest shopping market or the biggest shopping mall what you have ever couldn't manage to experience yet, because it's so big that you cannot go to the other end of it, and you can buy whatever you want from it and you can take it on the light. So just the problem is today world that they think that darkness is bad. It's not. It's the shopping mall. You can choose.
Yes, there's different ways of looking at this, and I love how you described basically the origin of our universe as darkness that exists, and something else comes to join the darkness. I've heard a different interpretation of this that has always stuck close to me personally. So this would be my personal genesis for the universe, and I think that it's very similar to what you described. However, darkness is referred to as infinity. And so the story goes that before all, there was just infinity. And infinity is darkness. It's a concept, it's an idea, but infinity existed for so long that it became aware of itself. And the awareness of infinity, the first thing that it became aware of was that it was alone and that it didn't want to be alone. And so the infinite awareness, it split itself into two copies of itself. But it realized that a copy of itself didn't solve its problem of being alone, because it was still controlling both of the copies. And the awareness of infinity realized that the only way for it to solve its problem of being alone is to endow a separate part of itself with free will. And so the split that happened there, where infinity split into two and gave the other half free will, would have been the origin of the universe. And so these separate points of awareness, they continue to split. And here we are sitting today as three separate points of awareness in a conscious universe.
In a free will.
Exactly. Now, one of the most profound aha moments that is not one of my own, but that I've heard described by the author Eckhart Tolle, I think is really effective as well, because Eckhart Tolle, he wrote the book, The Power of Now, and it's about mindfulness. It's about bringing your awareness to the now, not living in the future, not living in the past. And this man was very depressed. And before he wrote this book, this man was actually contemplating taking his own life. And he recounted a story of sitting on a bench one day and having the thought, I cannot continue to live with myself. I can no longer live with myself. And then at that point in time, he became the observer of that thought, not the experiencer and that thought, but he observed that thought. And he kind of separated it. He was like, wait a second, I cannot live with myself. So the I and the myself that experiencing the I are two separate things. And so when he had that aha moment, he was like, wait a second, the I is experienced by something that is not the I. That's where he started to realize, like, wait a second, there's more to this. And I am not this depressed person. I am actually something beyond that. And trying to identify yourself with that thing that lives beyond your personality is kind of also been one of the major focuses of myself during meditation, trying to get away from the association with my name, with my face, with my body, because we are much more. And how do you feel about that? And what do you think is the best way to go through life, trying to find this balance between the identity and the personality that we're endowed with, and also being God?
That's good to put it like this. I like you bring up the mask, the idea of the personal masks. And I was thinking so much about it, that how is and why is it necessary in today's world, or it's necessary to have masks. And I have to figure out on myself that if I go to somewhere and nobody knows me, they're starting to project on me their own inside insecurity as a clean white plate or screen, and everybody's starting to react on me as their biggest enemy is me, or whatever, what is they projecting on me on that moment. And that's why it's like on kind of protection, or kind of protection, that you use a certain identity to the world to get some barriers, that this is who I am, this is I already did in life, and this is my experience where I came from. So I have and own a land and a free will in this planet, and I have the right to be in here because I did this and this. But it's contradict with the idea what you just say, that you are actually the observer and the God behind. And somehow in every single day, you have to put that together, that you somehow need that kind of, not can I say personality or a mask or something, how you show yourself to the public, that I am Szilvia, the lawyer, the social activist, or whoever, whatever mask I'm using. But on the other side, I know that it's nothing common, and it doesn't matter, because actually what I truly am is the I am behind the whole thing. What is the connection to the source? And this is what you actually saying, and what you bring up, the free will. And it's such another interesting question, because Spinoza, for example, said that free will is an illusion, because if you think about the universal mind, everything what you do is interacted by the universal mind. So whatever you think, whatever you act, however you act, is exactly the way how you should do it. So the more closer you are to the source, actually the more you do according to the source, and the more freedom you have, what is a totally contradiction and a totally absurd things. But the more you have closeness to the source, you have the more freedom, but on the same time you're exactly doing what the source make you to do. And this is what is totally make your mind totally I don't know, exploding, because free will or not free will, or however is it, the two things is connecting with each other, and you are just watching out of your mind that, so am I free or am I not free, or do I really have the free will? And actually you realize that if you are the source, you are free, because you are the source, but you have to go there to be free. And it's just complicated.
Yeah, and the things that source wants to do isn't necessarily what Szilvia or Tjeerd wants to do. And so when you change what you want to do, then you still have free will, but I guess it's different, right? Like
it's the word want, because the want is the ego. So as soon as you let the want out, you're connected with the source. Just you have to get this want out, because the the desire is going to the waste bin, and from that moment you are there.
everything as long as you don't want it.
If you don't want it, it's the ego as well.
How do you see like the God universal mind as seeing it like it needs instead of wants? Like maybe people say like God has a universal will, but what if he has a universal necessity? What do you think on that?
Do you think the universal need anything from us? I don't think so. I mean,
I do think
universe is absolutely independent from us. If you think about universe as God, everybody think that God need us to do this and this. No, actually God don't need anything, because God is God. He's like, he don't need us. It's like Mother Earth. Mother Earth don't need us to help her out. What she expect from us, if we can say expect, is respect her, because and she's not even expecting, because the more closer you are to the source, the more respect and love awakening in you, and how you connect, you cannot hurt anymore. And most of the people may be laughing at me when I'm going out and collecting the waste, because I'm not collecting the waste to make my little village tidier. I do it because I respect Mother Nature, and it's hurt me seeing that everybody so recklessly drop everything on plastic things to the ground. But it's not Mother Nature who needs my help. I just don't want to see it, because it's unrespectful towards her, and it's and it's hurt me, because I am part of her. So it's like the opposite side of the story. Universe don't need us. If Mother Earth just all of a sudden think that it has enough, it's just getting warm and get rid of the humanity, and that's it, and starting over another time, and that's it. She don't need us. Napset doesn't need us.
Why did they put us here? Like, I agree with you for a large extent, but I think like we put here for a certain purpose, otherwise we wouldn't be here. So I think there is a certain necessity for us to exist.
I think Tears could answer this question, because he just answered it before, that we came here because to investigate and experience ourselves, to get towards, and this is how you experience, and after you go back. That's the whole reason. Just experience every segment, every different kind of aspect, to create another one. What he said. Oh, that story was really touching me. That kind of aloneness, to creating another one and give him or her free will. There was a story in the Eden with Lilith as first wife of Adam, who had free will. And when Adam said that you are under me, Lilith showing the middle finger and said that, excuse me, wait a second. And she said that if you're doing this game with me and you're not giving me equal rights, I am out of here. And she just left, because she has the right to, they said she have the power to know the name, but give her power to get out. And she said the name, and she went out. And we have stories about her, very bad stories, that she was together with the demons and creating demons child and whatever. And who knows what is the truth, because everything is about Adam perspectives, and nobody listening to her side. So everything is speaking about what Adam perspective. But on the Adam side, if you think about it, Adam and Eve have 2 kids. Both of them was men. So question is, how is the third one come alive if there is only 2 men on the world? So it have to be somewhere on Lilith, who have other sorts of human ingredients to create a future population. So what I'm saying is, free will is very, very essential, and this is why we are here, to question everything. And especially we are speaking about this kind of world what we live in. The basic is the free will and the questioning, because if you don't have the right to debate something, that means that they cut off your free will, they cut off the purpose, the basic purpose of your life. And from that, you are a puppet, you are a rabbit, and your whole existence is annihilated and zeroed.
I see the necessity to being laying us down at what is actually necessary at that particular moment. Like, I cannot do anything if I purely out desire. I need to be compliant with the creator and what is actually occurring. So for example, like what I mean with necessity is like love. We need attention, we need presence. Those are things that we need. And because we recognize that, we open ourselves up to any possibility that might occur. So I think a lot of people use this word like free will, but I think it's more like a freedom of necessity. Like when we recognize what is needed, then we have something that we call freedom. But if we act merely out, okay, I want this, I want that, I want a big house, I want a big car, I want all these desires, all these impulses that we have, then we're still distracting them. We think we have a control, but we actually don't. But when we lay ourselves down to the creator, then we then yeah, we have what we call freedom of necessity, that we can go ahead with what is actually needed. But that's my own personal take and my own personal philosophy.
And I agree with a point, but there is another perspective of this one as well, because freedom, and if you connect with the source, there is an essence over there that it's provide you everything you need. And it's really very difficult to believe, because I had that kind of test when I came out from the Middle East and absolutely zeroed and on financial. And I started to step up and starting to go forward and open a business, and I was attacked, and the business was destroyed, and I have to set up again. And after I went to work for an airline, and the airline collapsed after 6 months, and after I was on ground again. And I was tested really deeply when I was on my knee that, okay, God, I am here, I don't have financial sources, and I have to go forward, and all the surrounding is watching me failing and wishing me failing and offering me the most disgusting offers, and I don't want to fail. I am your worker, I trust in you, and even thousands of people go around and go against me, I still trust in you. So please help me out. And he all of a sudden opened a source I couldn't even imagine, and open up something to get enough to go forward. And after you starting to trust that, yeah, I don't need to trust people, I don't need to trust instrument, I don't need to trust the others. The only trust I have is in God, because I believe he will provide. And as soon as I'm serving the others, and I'm serving to help the humanity being a better thing, or better going to the better direction, I will be surrounded by the sources I need to go forward, and not just survive, but I will have plenty, and I will have enough, and more than enough. And this is that kind of basic faith what you have to create, and this is connected to the free will, because you choose God above everything else. But it's also a really big faith of a test of faith and surrender.
Yeah, great, fair enough. I can imagine that. So for an ending question, is there anything like to you want to add to our whole dialogue of today?
I am so impressed, and I love it so much, and I learned so much from you guys, and I really appreciate, because the ideas and the stories and Eckhart Tolle and everything was shared. It's just made me so many good things and so many new things in my brain to think and go forward. So I am really appreciate the opportunity, and I'm really grateful to be here and get to know you greater.
Great.
Thank you.
I can say, Szilvia, it's been a real pleasure also listening to you speak, getting to know you a little better. I am also very impressed, and I look forward to hopefully picking up this conversation in the future.
Absolutely.
Likewise.
Absolutely.
Likewise, yeah. I want to really thank you for coming on the podcast, and I hope the people watching find it meaningful, that what you shared. And yeah, I hope to continue on as well in our contacts, and maybe in the philosopher circles, or in other ways. Yeah, so thank you again, and thank you people for watching, and be sure to like, subscribe. Yeah, keep posted for all the things that are coming up. There are some things we have planned, but we're still figuring out how to proceed, so stay tuned for that. And eternal love.